Welcome to another PhotoRec.tv Q&A. This is one of these videos where I answer your questions. In this one, I'm going to be answering your questions submitted on Instagram. Truthfully, if you don't follow me on Instagram, you really no, I'm just kidding. You're missing out. It's my favorite place to post images, to see what you all are up to. I just love it. It's free of the political side of things. It's just nice images, and it's where I'm sharing some of my favorite work. So you can follow me, Hey Toby I, on Instagram, and keep an eye out for the Q&A call-outs, because from time to time I'll ask you if you've got any questions so that I can answer them in videos like this. All right, our first question comes to us from antisocialpictures. They're thinking about making a metal or acrylic print, wondering if I have a preference and any post-processing tips for that type of material. Well, antisocialpictures, I've actually never made an acrylic print. I've only made metallic. I really like the metallic look. I love that it comes ready to mount, at least the ones from Adorama Pics that I've gotten before. And it's just a no-hassle way to get kind of a slick, neat image that's ready to go right up on your wall. And of course, I just always need to put a plug in for please print your pictures from time to time. Metal, acrylic, paper, whatever. But it's just so much fun to have a few of your photos up around the house. All right, so that said, now metallic pictures can look very crunchy, very contrasty easily. So my editing tips for those, and this applies to acrylic to some degree as well, is be very careful that you don't overdo the blacks. So you press the J key in Lightroom when you're editing, and you can see that overlay of the black areas that are starting to lose detail. Make sure you dial that back a little bit. Make it a little bit less contrasty than you normally would. The same goes for sharpness, and that's what I mean by crunchy. Watch out with your clarity and your sharpness sliders to not overdo it. In fact, do it a little bit less than you typically would, because the material that it's printed on just makes it look a little bit more contrasty and sharp anyway. So I hope that helps. All right, our next question comes to us from isitrachelle, who I've met personally. She was actually the winner on last year's Yosemite. No, that was this year's. It's been a crazy year. This year's Yosemite giveaway. She traveled with us to Yosemite with McKay Photography Academy. She's looking for the best way to find other creatives and photographers to shoot with. And also, how do you get your work out there when you're just starting? isitrachelle, this is a fantastic question, and the answer lies in what I mentioned at the very beginning, Instagram. I believe right now that Instagram is the absolute best way for like-minded creatives and photographers to network. You have these wonderful tools with the hashtags and the locations. Find people that are shooting in your area via hashtags or locations, and find people that have about the same number of followers as you, or maybe a little bit more or a little bit less, depending. The reason I say that is you probably can't expect to reach out to some of these amazingly popular Instagrammers with 100,000, 200,000, or a million and say, hey, I'd like to go shoot with you. But find people in your area with your area of number of followers. Reach out to them on Instagram. You might want to start slowly ease into this relationship with a couple of nice comments on pictures that appeal to you, and their work should appeal to you. Don't start to network with people whose work you don't like. I think that should go without saying, but I just said it. You know, a couple of comments on their Instagram, see if you can get them to start following, but then just reach out and say, hey, I love your work. I wonder if you want to get together for coffee sometime, or want to get together and just shoot for the afternoon. And through this, their followers are probably different than your followers. You go out, you shoot together, you kind of cross-pollinate, you call each other out in a good way on Instagram, you tag each other, and you kind of help each other build up your following. There is so much to be said for working cooperatively, not competitively, and that's true of all fields, but it feels sometimes in a very competitive photography field that you want to be the best. You don't want to collaborate with these other people because they might steal your idea or your look. That's really not a good way to go about things. I'm not saying you said that, Rochelle, because you didn't, but I just want to make sure people know it can be scary to collaborate, but really the best things come from that. And you said, what's the best way to get your work out there when you're just starting? Well, I'm going to answer this again and a little bit further down in another question, but Instagram and your gallery, having a nice gallery, someplace that you can refer people to other than Instagram, that showcases your work in a kind of organized fashion that really presents the best of you, is nice. How do you get it out there? Through Instagram, through Facebook, through your friends. Just use these channels of social media to try to spread it as much as possible. Lean on family and friends and say, hey, I'm really proud of this image. Do you mind sharing it out with a little note that I'm available for shoots, if that's the kind of thing that you're looking to do more of? Adam Kane wants to know if the XT2 would be an improvement over the Canon 70D for sports. I don't know, Adam. I imagine that they are extremely similar. I think one drawback that you're going to find with the XT2, though, is a lack of those telephoto lenses, especially affordable ones and the very long ones. Fuji certainly has some available. They are excellent lenses, but none of them are very cheap. So you got to balance that idea with the idea that you might have slightly better autofocus performance. I would be surprised if the XT2 really does outperform the 70D, though, in a variety of situations. That's not to say the XT2 isn't a good camera. It's a fantastic camera, and in some ways, of course, a better camera than the 70D. But for sports, I'd feel a little bit more comfortable if you went with something like the 70D, or even the 80D would offer even a better option with its improved AF performance. The KSO wants to know, do I have any opinions on the Pentax K70? They're looking to step up from a bridge camera. It'll be their first DSLR. Being that I'm mostly in the woods, I like its weather resistance and the price seems decent. I have to say the Pentax makes fantastic bodies and sensors. They are an awesome combination. They don't get nearly as much love as they should, except for their dedicated fans who love them to death. The downsides to going with something like Pentax is you are limiting yourself in the ecosystem. There are far fewer accessories and lenses. Yes, you're going to argue with me that it can use all of those older lenses. That's true. There are tons of fantastic bargains to be had out there. A lot of them you do lose your weather sealing if you use one of those lenses. But, and it's just a smaller kind of, as I said, ecosystem of stuff, including support and educating materials to use. Now, if that doesn't concern you at all, they are an absolutely great value. But if that's a little bit concerning, including the idea of maybe going out and shooting with friends or family and being able to share lenses or share ideas with that gear, then you might want to consider something like a Canon or a Nikon. But for the value, for the money, Pentax is very nice and does offer some great weather sealing. Don't get overly caught up in the whole idea of weather sealing. Really, are you going to be out shooting in real rain? Ask yourself that. I'm not trying to dissuade you from the Pentax, but I just want to make sure. For a lot of years, I was very, very careful with my gear. Anytime it started to even look like it was going to rain, I was making sure it was completely protected. But the truth is, all of this stuff can handle dampness, it can handle mistiness, and it can handle generally being out in the woods and used like a camera should. If you really do want to be out in all conditions and shooting when the water is really falling from the sky, raining, then you should consider a more weather-sealed camera. The Pentax is great. A Canon 7D, the older one, buy it used, is a fantastic way to save money and get into a camera. Certainly is a little bit of a bigger camera. Or the Canon 80D, or on the Nikon side, the D72 series, 7200 series. Could work as well. Briandresrg writes, "Hey Toby, I'm a beginning photographer and I would like to make a living out of it. Do you have any tips on where to start in the field of landscape, commercial, and maybe wedding photography, or at least how to generate income from it, and any tips on starting a YouTube travel channel?" Let's start with the last. I have a little bit of experience in starting a YouTube channel. You're watching it. The key to that is consistency. Start to do something you love because it's going to be hard work. So make sure you like it because you're going to be doing a lot of it. And make sure you're consistent at it. Consistently putting up content for people to digest. And be yourself. Don't try to be anybody else or try to fake it till you make it. You need to just be yourself, and no apologies for that. It's not easy, but it certainly is a lot of fun. Specifically travel, Well, I would think that you want to both entertain and offer people educational advice about what there is to do in a location, what they should look for, what they should see, any tips, any kind of behind the scenes things that you can offer are all a great way to give people content that they're looking for. And be sure you keyword the heck out of that. And not just keywords, but the tags on YouTube don't do a whole lot actually. Really what you want to do is write a nice little paragraph up at the beginning of your description of each one of these videos that really gives people a sense of what's in it. Make sure in there you use keywords that are going to help people find what you want them to see. But let's go back and talk a little bit about trying to make a living out of photography. So you've got three very different things here: landscape, commercial, wedding. That's a huge difference. And as hard as it might be, I think you should try to figure out which one you really want to actually make a living out of. I'll say landscape photography, extremely difficult to make a living out of landscape photography. Why would anybody buy your nice picture of a sunrise or sunset over 1,000 other ones that are up there for sale on stock photography sites? You have to have an immense following and a network of people that know your name, that are interested in buying your work before you can actually make a living out of landscape photography. So let's set that one aside. Commercial, that's a huge range. Do you mean photographing products? Do you mean photographing the interiors of architectural buildings? So again, you got to narrow this down. And weddings is certainly one of those areas where a lot of people think they can look at and see people charging $1,000, $2,000, $5,000, $10,000 for a wedding, say, I can make money, I can do that. So decide which one of those you want. And then start to create content in that area. Put it up on a website. Same kind of answers that I gave isitrachelle. Make sure that you lean on friends and family and say, look, here are these beautiful images that I'm creating. Share these with friends and family. Tell them I'm available to shoot the inside of their house if they're about to put it on the market, or I can shoot their wedding. Now with weddings, I would much rather you start off looking at being an assistant and then a second shooter. So there's varying degrees of helpfulness for people that are photographing a wedding. You can get an assistant that comes along kind of as the gear hauler, and then you can get a second shooter. So look for somebody who needs some help from time to time. That is a much better way to kind of break into it and see whether or not you like it. It's really crappy to figure out when you show up at your first wedding that you really don't enjoy this. And of course, with all of these, keep in mind that there is so much more business side of this than there is just doing the photography. And that actually goes with the YouTube channel as well. I spend large parts of my day not necessarily creating video and content for you all, but figuring out what I need to do, making sure bills are paid, and all of that extra business stuff that goes along with running a business. Joey Condi also wants to know a little bit more about the Fuji XT2 and hopes that I'll do a review of it soon. Yes, I hope to bring you that review as soon as possible. All right, double questions in the same spot. Is that okay with you all? Happy Healthy Crazy Life says they're still getting used to their camera. They're going on a hike this weekend. I asked this a couple weeks ago. Sorry, Happy Healthy Crazy Life, getting back to you a little slower. And you're not sure what gear to take/buy. Something I can reuse because I'm not sure when the next time I will go on a hike. All right. It's kind of an amorphous question, not knowing what gear you have now, but I'll tell you what. The more I travel, the more I enjoy the simplicity of bringing less and making fewer decisions every time I step out of the car, step out of the hotel room, step out of my own house. If I've just got one camera and one lens, that's what I'm going to bring with me, and I don't have to spend any mental energy on deciding anything else. Now, that might seem kind of silly. You're going to miss a shot. What if you see Amazing Bald Eagle and you didn't bring your telephoto lens? So what? You don't make that shot that day. You make other shots with the gear you have, and you enjoy traveling light and not wearing yourself out. I'm telling you, it has happened to me, and it's happening to me more and more. And I'm in a little bit of a unique position, having lots of different gear at times. Some of it is mine, some of it I'm reviewing, and feel pressure to bring it along and be using it to make sure I'm bringing you all knowledgeable, real, hands-on stuff about that gear. But really, when I'm traveling just for myself and taking pictures, I really love going light. So walk out the door with your camera and a single prime lens, or the kit lens. You are very capable of making fantastic imagery with that stuff. That all said, the one thing I will add is if you're going anywhere where you've got some beautiful landscapes, I'm going to put a plug in for my telephoto lenses are fantastic for landscape, not wide angle. So considering having or bringing along a nice lightweight telephoto lens that can really bring those big mountains and the big beauty of some landscapes much closer to you. David Blair wonders if I have any ideas for photography projects around the house. Well, David, the first one that comes to mind, it's a lot of fun. If you've got kids, it's really easy. You've probably got all the materials you need. It's just some kind of stories with toys, especially Legos. You can do so much with Legos. It might be because I loved them as a kid. I still love Legos. But a couple minifigures and a couple other pieces you could do a lot with. And working at those kind of closer distances, you can create dramatic depth of field, really create some kind of fun stories and scenes and little vignettes. And when I say that, I mean these little captured stories, not the darkening around the edges of the frame. With all of these questions I've been answering so far, you YouTubers have a lot of great ideas as well. I'd love to hear your thoughts on all of them, but especially this one. Any ideas for photography projects around the house? The other thing I'll say about toys and minifigures and Legos is they don't get grumpy. They will stand still as long as you need them to, and you can use very small lighting systems, like a little LED flashlight, to kind of recreate big studio lights with just a much smaller system. It can be a great way to learn. It's a lot of fun. More Art VC wants to know, they've just upgraded to the Sony a7R Mark II. They love it. They currently only have the 28mm f2. That's the 28mm f2. If I could only have one more lens, what would I buy? Well, that is a great question. And if I have to stick to what I said earlier about traveling simply, traveling lightly, I'd probably pick 24-70 f4 and just walk around with that most of the time. That's just a fantastic travel-friendly lens that gives you a great range. But it's not the best for street photography. So it really depends on how much of some of these different categories you're doing. But I have to say, you seem fairly adventurous just walking around with one prime lens now. The 55 f1.8 is a fantastic lens, still travel-friendly, and great for a variety of landscapes, street photography as well, or the 70-200 f4. But if I had to pick one, 55 f1.8. Chat, YouTube commenters, I'd love to know what you would pick. And I think this is a great place to end this. I didn't get to everybody's question. I'll be back answering some of those online and in future videos. As I said, Instagram is the best place to see what I'm up to from time to time. I'm sharing my favorite work there, and it's a great place to ask me questions. Thanks so much for watching. Goodbye.